After decades of supporting my family, they called me worthless. Now they're worthless. Without my support, they say family is supposed to be your anchor. But what happens when your anchor becomes the very thing that drags you down? When the people you love most turn their backs? It doesn't always happen with one big betrayal. Sometimes it's 1,000 small cuts, each one just deep enough to remind you that you are invisible. I am Evelyn Carter, and for 64 years, I have held my family together with quiet strength, steady hands, and a heart that still aches for kindness. I've watched as my sacrifices faded into the background, replaced by their rising sense of entitlement and their sharp, careless words. But one day the truth hit me so hard I could no longer ignore it. They didn't just forget my value. They decided I had none at all. Hello, I'm Evelyn, and I'm sharing my journey so that others like me might find their voice. Tell me where you're reading from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of resilience and reckoning. I wake up every morning at 5:30, just like I have for the past 24 years. The house is quiet, the way it used to be when my husband James was still alive, before the cancer took him and left me to raise Lisa and David alone. Mom, where's my blue shirt? David's voice echoes from upstairs, breaking the peaceful silence. I set down my coffee cup and head to the laundry room. Which blue shirt, honey? You have 3. The one with the collar. I have that interview today, remember? Of course I remember. I'm the one who found him the job listing, typed up his resume, and even called my friend Martha, whose son works at the company. But David doesn't mention any of that. It's hanging in your closet, I call back. I pressed it yesterday. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just the sound of his footsteps rushing around upstairs. Lisa appears in the kitchen, already dressed in her expensive suit, the one I helped her buy when she got promoted last year. Mom, can you watch Emma tonight? Greg and I have that charity dinner. I look at my daughter, searching her face for some sign that she remembers I might have plans of my own. What time? 6. She'll probably fall asleep early, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. Shouldn't be too much trouble. As if watching my granddaughter is a burden instead of one of the few joys left in my life. Of course, sweetheart. You know I love spending time with Emily. Emma, Lisa corrects, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. Her name is Emma, Mom. My cheeks burn. Emily is what I wanted to call her, what I suggested when Lisa was pregnant. But Lisa chose Emma instead, and somehow, in my mind, she's always been both. Sorry, Emma, you know what I mean. Lisa's already checking her phone, scrolling through emails. Thanks. We'll be back by 11. She's gone before I can respond, leaving only the faint scent of her perfume and the feeling that I've somehow disappointed her again. The phone rings as I'm washing dishes. Evelyn, it's Ruth. My sister's voice carries that familiar note of desperation that makes my stomach tighten. What's wrong now, Ruth? Nothing's wrong. Can't I just call my sister? I wait. There's always something. Well, actually, Frank lost his job again. The construction company laid off half their crew. I dry my hands slowly, already knowing where this conversation is headed. I'm sorry to hear that. We're going to be short on the mortgage this month. You know how it is. I do know. I have known for the past 3 years, every time Frank gets fired or quits, or simply stops showing up, I've known every time Ruth calls with that same pleading tone, never quite asking directly but making it clear what she needs. How much? I ask. Just 800. We'll pay you back as soon as Frank finds something. The same promise I've heard dozens of times. The same promise that's never been kept. I'll transfer it today. You're an angel, Evelyn. I don't know what we'd do without you. But she doesn't really mean it. If she did, she wouldn't wait until the last minute to call. She wouldn't make it sound like I'm doing her a small favor instead of saving her home. David comes downstairs looking sharp in his pressed shirt and tie. For a moment, he looks like his father, and my heart aches with old grief. Thanks for the shirt, Mom. I'll call you after the interview. Good luck, honey. Remember what we practiced about? I know. Eye contact, firm handshake, ask thoughtful questions. He's already heading for the door. Love you. And then he's gone too, leaving me alone with the breakfast dishes and the growing realization that I'm only valuable when someone needs something. I walk through the house, straightening cushions that don't need straightening, organizing drawers that are already organized. This is my domain, the place I've poured my life into for decades. Every photo on the mantel tells a story of sacrifice. Lisa's graduation paid for with money I saved by eating generic cereal for 2 years. David's wedding deposit, covered by my emergency fund. Ruth's Christmas presents for her kids, bought with money I should have spent on myself. The silence feels heavier today. Maybe it's because of Lisa's casual dismissal this morning, or David's assumption that I'd always be there to iron his shirts. Maybe it's because Ruth's gratitude felt so hollow, so automatic. I sit at the kitchen table where I've had 1,000 conversations with my children, where I've helped with homework and listened to teenage heartbreak, and offered advice that was either ignored or forgotten. The wood is worn smooth in places, scarred by years of family life. When did I become invisible? When did my opinions stop mattering? When did my children start seeing me as a service rather than a person? I think about James and what he would say if he could see us now. He always told me I was too generous, too willing to give without expecting anything in return. They need to learn to stand on their own, Evelyn. He used to say, you can't solve everyone's problems. But after he died, solving problems became my way of staying connected, of proving I was still needed. Every check I wrote, every favor I granted, every crisis I fixed was another thread binding them to me. Except now I realize the threads only go one way. They can tug on me whenever they need something. But when I reach back, my hands close on empty air. The afternoon sun streams through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes that dance and swirl like tiny spirits. I watch them for a long time, thinking about how they're only visible in the light, how they exist whether we see them or not. Maybe that's what I've become. Invisible until the light hits. Just right, present but unnoticed, essential but taken for granted. I get up and make myself a cup of tea, something small just for me. As I wait for the water to boil, I catch my reflection in the chrome surface of the kettle. The woman staring back looks tired, older than her 64 years. She looks like someone who's been giving pieces of herself away for so long that she's not sure what's left. But somewhere in those familiar brown eyes I see something else, a flicker of something that's been dormant for too long. It looks like determination. The next few weeks pass in their usual rhythm, but I find myself paying closer attention to the small indignities that thread through my days like an ugly necklace I never chose to wear. Mom, you're making that chicken thing again? Lisa wrinkles her nose as she sets Emma down at the dinner table. We had that last week. I've been making Sunday dinners for this family for over 30 years. The same chicken recipe that used to be everyone's favorite, that I've perfected through trial and error, that fills the house with warmth and the promise of togetherness. I can make something else if you'd prefer, I offer. No, it's fine. Emma likes it, don't you, sweetheart? No. My granddaughter nods enthusiastically. I love Grandma's chicken. Can you teach me how to make it? Of course, darling. We'll cook together next weekend. Lisa rolls her eyes. She's 7, Mom. She doesn't need to be cooking yet. But Emma's face lights up at the possibility, and I wink at her across the table. Some traditions are worth preserving, even if their mother doesn't understand their value. David arrives 20 minutes late as usual, with Megan trailing behind him looking apologetic. Sorry, he says, sliding into his chair. Traffic was insane. I glance out the window at the empty street, but I don't say anything. I learned long ago that challenging David's excuses only leads to more elaborate lies. How did the interview go last week? I ask instead. Oh, that. They went with someone else. Internal candidate, you know how it is. I don't know how it is, actually. I want to ask if he followed up, if he sent a thank you note, if he's applied anywhere else. But Megan catches my eye and shakes her head slightly, and I understand that she's already had this conversation with him. I'm sure something better will come along, I say instead. That's what I told him, Megan adds, reaching for David's hand. The right opportunity will present itself. I like Megan. She's kind and patient, qualities my son doesn't always deserve. She sees things, notices details that others miss. Sometimes I catch her watching the family dynamics with the same careful attention I've learned to pay. Speaking of opportunities, Lisa says, cutting into her chicken with more force than necessary. Greg's company is looking for an administrative assistant. Part-time, flexible hours. Might be perfect for you, Mom. The words hit me like a slap. Administrative assistant. After running a household, managing finances, raising 2 children, supporting half my extended family through various crises. She thinks I'm qualified to answer phones and file papers. That's thoughtful of you to think of me, I manage. You're always saying you're bored since we moved out. This could be good for you, give you something to do. Something to do. As if my life is an empty vessel waiting to be filled with purpose. As if volunteering at the church, maintaining this house, being available for every crisis and celebration isn't already something. I'll think about it. Ruth calls during dessert, and I can tell by the way the room goes quiet that everyone knows what's coming. Evelyn, thank God you're home. The car broke down again, and the repair shop wants $600. Frank says we should just scrap it, but then how would I get to work? I can feel my family's eyes on me as I listen to my sister's familiar litany of problems. Lisa shakes her head disapprovingly. David looks uncomfortable. Megan studies her plate, intently. Can you give me until tomorrow, Ruth? I need to check my account. Of course. You're a lifesaver. After I hang up, the silence stretches uncomfortably. You know she's never going to pay you back, Lisa says finally. That's not the point. What is the point, Mom? You keep throwing money at problems. That aren't your responsibility. Greg, who usually stays out of family discussions, clears his throat. Maybe Lisa has a point. You've been helping Ruth for years and it's my money to help with. I interrupt, more sharply than I intended. The table goes quiet again. Emma looks between the adults, sensing tension she doesn't understand. Can I have more mashed potatoes, Grandma? Of course, sweetheart. As I serve my granddaughter, I feel the weight of their judgment. They think I'm foolish, an old woman who can't see she's being used. But what they don't understand is that helping Ruth makes me feel needed, useful. Without that, what would I be to any of them? After dinner, while I'm loading the dishwasher, Megan approaches with a stack of plates. "Let me help you with these." "That's not necessary, dear. You're a guest." "I'm family," she says quietly, and something in her tone makes me look at her more carefully. We work in comfortable silence for a few minutes before she speaks again. "David doesn't see it, you know. How much you do for everyone." I pause, a glass halfway to the rack. "I don't know what you mean." "The way you remember everyone's favorite foods, how you always have exactly what Emma needs when she visits, the way you just take care of everything. It's not invisible to everyone." Her words are gentle, but they crack something open inside me that I've been trying to keep sealed. Sometimes I feel like I could disappear, and no one would notice unless they needed something, I admit. "I'd notice," Megan says, "and Emma would notice. She talks about you all the time, about how you listen to her stories, and remember all her friends' names." I have to blink back tears. When was the last time someone told me I mattered for who I am, rather than what I provide? "Thank you," I whisper. "For what?" "For seeing me." She squeezes my hand gently. "You're worth seeing, Evelyn. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Later, after everyone has gone home and the house is quiet again, I sit in my living room surrounded by the photos and memories of decades of family life. In every picture I'm there, organizing, serving, supporting, celebrating other people's achievements. Always in the background, always making sure everyone else shines. But when I look closely, I can see it in my own eyes, even in the older photos. The gradual dimming, the slow retreat from center stage to the shadows. Year by year, celebration by celebration, I made myself smaller to make room for everyone else's dreams. The phone rings, breaking my reverie. "Mom?" "It's David. I forgot to mention earlier, but Megan and I were hoping you could watch Emma next Saturday. We want to take her to that new theme park, and Lisa thought maybe you'd like to have her for the day." Another assumption, another expectation that I'll be available, willing, grateful for the chance to be useful. "What time?" I ask, because what else can I say? "We'll drop her off around 9. You're the best, Mom. Love you." He hangs up before I can respond, leaving me alone with the silence and the growing certainty that something has to change. I can't keep living in the margins of my own life, waiting for crumbs of appreciation that never come. I look around my living room one more time, at all the evidence of a life spent in service to others. Tomorrow, I think, I'll start making some changes. Small ones at first, barely noticeable, but changes nonetheless. The storm that's been building inside me for months is finally ready to break. My 64th birthday falls on a crisp October afternoon, the kind of day that makes you believe in fresh starts and second chances. I spend the morning preparing for the family gathering, making all the dishes I know everyone loves, setting the table with my good china, and arranging flowers from my garden in the center. For once I allow myself to hope that this day might be different, that they might see me, really see me, instead of just the services I provide. Lisa arrives first with Emma, who runs straight into my arms with the pure, uncomplicated love that only children possess. "Happy birthday, Grandma! I made you a card." She hands me a construction paper creation covered in glitter and stickers, with "I love you" written in careful 7-year-old letters. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you. I drew you in your garden because that's where you're always happy." The simple observation from my granddaughter hits me harder than any birthday wish from an adult. She sees me. She notices where I find joy. Lisa glances at the card dismissively. "Emma, go wash the glitter off your hands before you touch anything." David and Megan arrive shortly after, followed by Ruth and Frank. The house fills with conversation and laughter, but I notice how quickly the focus shifts away from the birthday and onto everyone else's news. The promotion is finally official, Lisa announces, accepting congratulations from everyone. Senior Vice President. Can you believe it? That's wonderful, honey, I say, meaning it. I'm proud of my daughter's success, even if she never acknowledges how my support helped make it possible. Greg's taking me to Paris to celebrate. We leave next month. Ruth sighs dramatically. Must be nice to have that kind of money. Frank and I haven't been anywhere in 5 years. An uncomfortable silence follows. I can feel everyone's expectation, their assumption that I'll somehow fix Ruth's disappointment like I always do. Well, I say carefully, Paris sounds lovely. You've worked hard for this, Lisa. David jumps in with his own news. Megan and I are thinking about moving in together. Found this great apartment downtown. That's a big step, I say, smiling at Megan. Are you excited? Very, though the deposit is pretty steep and with David between jobs. Another pause, another expectation, another assumption that I'll open my wallet to solve their problems. But before I can respond, Ruth laughs, a sharp, bitter sound that cuts through the room. Well, look at all of us with our hands out too, Mom, like always. The words hang in the air like smoke from a fire that's just started. Ruth, Frank warns quietly. What? It's true. Lisa needs help with her success, David needs help with his failures, and I need help just getting by, and there's Mom, same as always, taking care of everyone because that's all she's good for now that we're grown. My breath catches. The casual cruelty of it spoken so matter-of-factly on my birthday, in my home, at my table. Lisa doesn't defend me. Instead, she laughs. Actually laughs. Mom does like to be needed, she says. Remember when we were kids? She'd pack our lunches even when we were old enough to do it ourselves. Always hovering. Always solving problems we could handle. She still does that, David adds, and I can't tell if he means it fondly or not. Yesterday, she called to remind me about my dentist appointment. I'm 32, Mom. They're talking about me like I'm not here. Like I'm a character in a story they're telling instead of a person sitting 3 feet away. At least she's useful for something. Ruth continues, emboldened by the laughter. What would we do with her if she stopped taking care of everyone? She'd just be this old woman with nothing to offer. The words hit me like physical blows. Old woman with nothing to offer. Useful for something. All she's good for now. I look around the table at these people I've loved and supported and sacrificed for, searching for someone who will contradict Ruth's assessment. Someone who will remind them that I'm more than a bank account and a problem solver. Frank looks uncomfortable but says nothing. Greg studies his wine glass. David fidgets with his napkin. Only Megan meets my eyes and I can see the horror in her face, the desire to speak up warring with her newness to the family. And Emma, sweet Emma, looks confused by the adult conversation swirling around her. That's enough, I say quietly, but Ruth isn't finished. I mean, what else does she have? No job, no hobbies, really, no friends her own age, just us. And honestly, sometimes I think she uses that to manipulate us into letting her help when we don't really need it. The laughter that follows is the sound of my heart breaking. Not just Ruth laughing at her own cruel observation, but Lisa's knowing chuckle, David's uncomfortable snort. They think I manipulate them into accepting my help. They think my love is a trap, my generosity a form of control. I stand up slowly, my legs surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Excuse me for a moment." I walk to the kitchen, gripping the counter as the room spins around me. 64 years of life, 24 years of widowhood, decades of putting everyone else first. And this is what I get. Public humiliation on my birthday, reduced to a punchline about a useless old woman whose only value is her willingness to solve other people's problems. Megan appears beside me, her face flushed with anger. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate and—" "It's fine," I say, though my voice sounds strange even to my own ears. "It's not fine. They were cruel and wrong and—" Were they wrong? I turn to face her. "Really? Look at my life, Megan. What do I have besides them? What do I offer besides money and services?" "You offer love," she says fiercely. "You offer wisdom and kindness and stability. You remember everyone's birthdays and favorite foods and the names of Emma's imaginary friends. You show up for everything that matters and half the things that don't. You're the heart of this family." Apparently, they don't see it that way. Then they're blind. I can hear them in the dining room, the conversation moving on as if nothing happened. As if they didn't just strip away everything I thought I meant to them. But underneath the hurt, something else is stirring. Something cold and clear and utterly calm. They want to see me as nothing more than a useful old woman? Fine. Let's see how useful they find me when I stop being available. Let's see what they're worth without my support. I walk back to the dining room and resume my seat. The conversation continues around me. Lisa talking about her Paris trip. David mentioning a job lead. Ruth complaining about her car again. I listen and smile and nod. But inside, I'm making lists. Mental calculations. Planning. For the first time in decades, I'm not thinking about what they need from me. I'm thinking about what I need from them. And right now, what I need is for them to learn what life looks like without me. The birthday cake sits untouched in the center of the table. My name written in cheerful pink frosting. 64 candles that no one has thought to light. It doesn't matter. I've already made my wish. After everyone leaves, after the dishes are done, and the house falls back into its familiar silence, I retreat to my bedroom with a cup of tea and the old leather-bound ledger I've kept hidden in my dresser drawer for years. This isn't just a record of finances. It's the map of my entire adult life, written in careful columns of figures that tell stories no one else knows. I open to the first page, dated 24 years ago, just after James died. The handwriting is shakier then, uncertain, like I was when I suddenly found myself responsible for everything. September 15th, Lisa's first semester tuition. Threw out $200, October the 2nd. David's braces, 2,800 plur. October 30th, Ruth's mortgage payment. Frank laid off. $100 page after page of entries, each one representing a choice I made to put someone else's needs before my own comfort. Each number a small sacrifice that added up to something much larger over the decades. I flipped through the years, watching the amounts grow larger as my children's needs became more expensive and my sister's crises more frequent. May 12th, Lisa's wedding deposit. $5,000 August 3rd. David's failed restaurant investment. $15,000 December 18th. Ruth's Christmas. Kids' gifts when Frank unemployed. $800. The restaurant investment still stings. David was so excited about partnering with his friend to open a bistro downtown. He had plans, spreadsheets, dreams that sparkled in his eyes when he talked about being his own boss. I knew it was risky. James would have said no, would have insisted David get a business loan like anyone else. But I saw my son's hope and couldn't bear to be the one to crush it. The restaurant lasted 8 months. I turned to more recent entries, the ones that document how my role shifted from supporting their dreams to enabling their failures. January 8th. Lisa's mortgage. Promotion delayed. $2,400. February 14th. David's rent. Still unemployed. $900. March 22nd. Ruth's car repair. $600 April the 18th. David's credit card payment. What, $200. The pattern is clear when you see it all laid out like this. My children learned to view me as a safety net, always there to catch them when they fell. And I learned to derive my worth from being needed, even when that need felt more like exploitation. But here's what they don't know, what none of them have ever bothered to ask about. James left me well provided for. Not rich, but comfortable enough to live independently for the rest of my life if I was careful. Instead, I've spent the last 2 decades carefully managing what he left me so that I could continue supporting everyone else. I've lived in the same house, driven the same car, worn the same clothes, eaten generic groceries, all so I could be available when they needed me. The ledger shows the real cost, $127,000 over 24 years. College tuitions, failed businesses, emergency repairs, mortgage payments, Christmas gifts, vacation deposits, medical bills, wedding expenses, baby gear, car down payments, $127,000 of my late husband's legacy, spent on people who just called me a useless old woman. I reach for a pen and start a new page, titled, The Cost of Dignity. Below it I write, what they owe me isn't money, it's respect. But looking at these numbers, at this concrete proof of my value to their lives, gives me something I haven't had in years. Leverage. I pick up my phone and open my banking app. The account balance stares back at me. Still healthy despite decades of withdrawals thanks to careful investing and James's excellent life insurance policy. I have options. I have power. I just never realized it because I was too busy giving it all away. My phone buzzes with a text from David. Thanks for a great birthday dinner, Mom. Love you. No mention of the cruel conversation. No acknowledgement of how they treated me. Just the same casual affection he'd show a favorite restaurant. Thanks for the meal. See you next time. Another text, this one from Lisa. Can you watch Emma next Friday? Greg and I have theater tickets. And then Ruth. The car repair was more than, they quoted, need another $200. Can you transfer it tomorrow? I stare at the messages, at the easy assumption that I'll continue to be available, that today's humiliation won't change anything between us. They're right about one thing. I have made myself indispensable to their lives. But they're wrong about why. It wasn't manipulation. It was love. Misguided, perhaps, but genuine. Now, though, looking at my ledger and their messages, I realize that love without respect is just servitude. And I've been serving long enough. I turn to a fresh page and write, Plan A, Boundaries. Under it, I list each family member's typical requests and my new responses. Lisa, childcare, financial backup. I'll need advance notice and alternative arrangements. David, rent money, bill payments. Time to make your own arrangements. Ruth, emergency funds, crisis management. I'm sure you'll figure something out. It's not punishment. It's simply the end of unconditional availability. I flip to another page and write, Plan B, Truth. Because at some point, they need to know what their independence has cost me. Not to make them feel guilty, but to help them understand that my value to this family extends far beyond being a convenient problem solver. The numbers in this ledger tell a story of sacrifice and love that they've never bothered to read. Maybe it's time they learned what I've been writing all these years. I close the ledger and place it back in the drawer. But something has shifted. I'm no longer the woman who woke up this morning, hoping for crumbs of appreciation. I'm someone with choices. Someone with power. Someone who's done being invisible. Tomorrow I'll start setting boundaries. Small ones at first, barely noticeable changes that will ripple outward through their carefully constructed dependence on me. They want to know what I'd be without them. They're about to find out what they are without me. The Monday after my birthday, I wake up with a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in years, I'm not immediately thinking about what everyone else needs from me. David calls while I'm having coffee. "Hey, Mom, I know it's short notice, but could you spot me for rent this month? I should hear back about that job by Friday, and then I'll pay you back." The old me would have already been reaching for my checkbook. The new me takes a sip of coffee and considers my response. "I'm sorry, honey, but I can't help you this time." Silence. I can almost hear him recalibrating, trying to figure out what went wrong with the usual script. "What do you mean you can't? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just think it's time you handle your own financial responsibilities. But Mom, you always..." "I know what I always do. I'm changing what I always do." More silence, then quietly. "Is this about what Ruth said at dinner? Because she was just joking around. You know that, right?" Joking around. As if reducing me to a useful service was just harmless family banter. "This isn't about Ruth. This is about me making better choices about how I spend my money." "Your money?" His voice carries a note of confusion, as if he's never really considered that. "The funds he borrows belong to someone else." "Yes, David, my money." "Okay, well, what am I supposed to do about rent?" "I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're a smart, capable man." After I hang up, I sit quietly with my coffee, waiting for the guilt to crash over me. But it doesn't come. Instead, I feel lighter, like I've set down a weight I didn't realize I was carrying. The phone rings again. Ruth this time. "Evelyn, I need that extra $200 for the car. The mechanic wants it today, or they're keeping the car overnight." "I'm not going to be able to help with that." "What do you mean? You said yesterday you'd think about it." "I did think about it. The answer is no." "No." She says it like it's a foreign word. "But what am I supposed to do? Frank doesn't get paid until Friday, and I need the car to get to work." "I'm sure you'll work something out." "Evelyn, I don't understand. You've never said no before." "Maybe that was the problem." I hang up before she can respond, before the familiar manipulation can begin. The guilt trips, the reminders of family loyalty, the implications that I'm being selfish. By afternoon, my phone has exploded with messages. David texted 4 times, each message more desperate than the last. Ruth called twice and left increasingly frantic voicemails. Even Lisa weighed in with a text. "David says you're acting weird. Everything okay?" I respond to Lisa with a simple, "Everything's fine. Just making some changes." The doorbell rings at 6. Megan stands on my porch, looking concerned and apologetic. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by." David is... well, he's pretty upset. "Come in, dear. Would you like some tea?" We sit in my living room, and I can see her trying to figure out how to approach whatever conversation David sent her to have. "He's worried about you," she begins carefully. "The phone call this morning was so unlike you." Was it? Or was it just the first time in years that I said no to something? She considers this. Maybe both? I like that about Megan. Her honesty. Her willingness to see nuance where everyone else sees only black and white. Can I ask you something? I say. Yesterday at dinner, how did you feel when Ruth said those things about me? Her cheeks flush. Angry. Embarrassed. Like I wanted to defend you but wasn't sure if it was my place. It was your place. You're going to be part of this family, which means you get to speak up when someone is being cruel. I should have said something. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Learn from it. Because if you marry David, you need to understand something about the Carter family dynamics. We've all learned to be comfortable with cruelty as long as it's disguised as humor or honesty. She nods slowly. I've noticed that. The way conversations can turn sharp so quickly. David doesn't know how to handle money because I've always handled it for him. Ruth doesn't know how to solve her own problems because I've always solved them for her. Lisa doesn't know how to show appreciation because she's never had to earn my help. And now you want them to learn? I want them to grow up. All of them. At 64, I'm tired of parenting adults who should be capable of taking care of themselves. Megan is quiet for a long moment. David's really panicking about the rent. Good. Panic is motivating. Is there anything I can do to help? Not with money, she adds quickly, but with this transition? I study her face, seeing genuine concern rather than manipulation. Actually, yes. I need someone to talk to who isn't emotionally invested in keeping things the way they've always been. Someone who can help me stay strong when the guilt trips start. The guilt trips? Oh, they're coming. Ruth will tell me I'm abandoning family. Lisa will suggest I'm having some kind of breakdown. David will remind me of all the times he's been there for me, which, frankly, I'm having trouble remembering. And you want me to remind you that you're doing the right thing? I want you to remind me that I'm worth more than what I can provide for other people. She reaches over and squeezes my hand. You are, Evelyn. You absolutely are. After Megan leaves, I start a new journal. Not for finances, but for documenting the changes ahead. I want to remember every conversation, every reaction, every moment of this transformation. Day 1. Said no to David's rent money. Said no to Ruth's car repair. Both responded with shock rather than anger. Not sure if that's good or bad. Megan, stop by. She sees what's happening and supports the changes. Having an ally feels important. Next, Lisa will ask me to babysit Emma on Friday. This will be the real test, saying no to something involving my granddaughter. The phone rings as if summoned by my thoughts. Mom, about Friday night, can you still watch Emma? I know you said you wanted advance notice, but these theater tickets were a gift from Greg's boss. Here it is, the test I knew was coming. I'm sorry, Lisa, but I won't be available Friday. What do you mean you won't be available? You're always available. Not anymore. Do you have plans? The question catches me off guard. When was the last time anyone asked if I had plans before assuming I'd be free? As a matter of fact, I do. It's not technically a lie. My plan is to stay home and read a book I've been meaning to get to for months. My plan is to take a long bath and go to bed early. My plan is to spend an evening focused entirely on my own wants instead of everyone else's needs. What kind of plans? The incredulity in her voice is telling. The idea that I might have a life outside of their convenience is apparently shocking. Personal plans. Mom, this is really important. Greg's boss specifically invited us to this show. It's a work thing. Then I'm sure you can find another babysitter. But Emma loves staying with you. She'll be disappointed. Now comes the guilt. The implication that I'm letting down my granddaughter, the one person in the family whose love feels genuine and uncomplicated. Emma will understand, and there will be other times. I don't understand what's gotten into you. Yesterday, Ruth called crying because you wouldn't help with her car, and now David says you're refusing to help with his rent. What's going on? What's going on is that I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries? We're family, Mom. Family doesn't have boundaries. Healthy families do. Since when do you know about healthy families? You've been taking care of us our whole lives. The words hang between us, and I realize she's just proven my point without meaning to. Taking care of them has been my entire identity for so long that the idea of me having needs or limits is incomprehensible. I'm learning, I say quietly. It's never too late to learn. After I hang up, I write in my new journal. Lisa's response was pure incredulity. The concept that I might prioritize my own wants over their needs is foreign to her. She's right about one thing. I have been taking care of them their whole lives. Too well, apparently. Tomorrow, Ruth will escalate. She'll probably show up in person. I'm right. Ruth appears at my door the next morning, looking haggard and desperate. Evelyn, we need to talk. I let her in, make coffee, and wait for the performance to begin. I don't know what's happening with you, but this isn't like you. Family takes care of family. That's what we do. Is it? When was the last time you took care of me, Ruth? What do you mean? I'm here all the time. You're here when you need something. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you offered to help me with anything? She stares at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. You don't need help. You're the one who has everything together. Everyone needs help sometimes. Well, what do you need? I'll help you. But we both know it's an empty offer, a bargaining chip rather than genuine care. I need you to solve your own problems for a while. That's not fair. You know Frank and I are struggling. You know we're barely keeping our heads above water. And you know that's not my responsibility. Since when? Since always. I just forgot for a few years. She starts crying then, the tears I've seen countless times before. The tears that usually make me reach for my checkbook and my comforting words. But today, I hand her a tissue and wait. I can't believe you're doing this to me, she sobs, after everything we've been through together. What have we been through together, Ruth? Really? We're sisters. Yes, we are. But somewhere along the way, you started treating me like a bank instead of a sister. That's not true. When was the last time we had a conversation that didn't involve you needing money, or help, or advice? When was the last time you asked about my life, my feelings, my plans? The silence stretches between us, and I can see her trying to remember, trying to find evidence that contradicts what we both know is true. I care about you, she says finally. I know you do. But caring and taking advantage aren't mutually exclusive. After she leaves, I write in my journal. Ruth's visit confirmed what I suspected. She genuinely doesn't understand the difference between being family and being used by family. The tears were real, but so was the expectation that emotion should override boundaries. 3 days in, and the pattern is clear. Shock, denial, manipulation, anger. I'm ready for the anger phase. I don't have to wait long. The anger phase begins with a conference call I never agreed to participate in. My phone rings at 8 in the morning, and when I answer, I hear multiple voices. Mom, we're all here. Lisa says. Me, David, and Ruth. We need to talk. They've staged an intervention, as if my newfound boundaries are an addiction they need to cure me of. This is ridiculous, David starts. You can't just cut us off without warning. I didn't cut you off. I stopped automatically saying yes to everything. Same thing, Ruth mutters. It's really not. Lisa takes the lead, her voice carrying the authority she uses in boardroom meetings. Mom, we've been talking, and we think you might be going through something. Maybe it's hormonal, or maybe you're depressed. I'm not depressed. I'm disappointed. In us? David asks, and for the first time there's genuine hurt in his voice. In the way I've allowed myself to be treated. We treat you fine, Ruth protests. We love you. Do you? Or do you love what I do for you? The question hangs in the air, unanswered and uncomfortable. That's not fair, Lisa says finally. Just because we accept your help doesn't mean we don't appreciate you as a person. When was the last time any of you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you invited me somewhere that didn't involve babysitting or problem solving? We invited you to dinner last weekend, David points out. That was my birthday dinner, at my house, with food I cooked. Another uncomfortable silence. Look, Lisa says, if this is about what Ruth said at dinner, she didn't mean anything. Buy it. I meant it, Ruth says quietly, and everyone goes silent. I mean, not the mean parts, but... Mom, you do use helping us as a way to stay involved in our lives. The accusation hits like a physical blow, but I force myself to really consider it. You might be right, I admit. But if that's true, what does it say about our relationships that the only way I can stay connected to my family is by solving your problems? No one has an answer for that. The point is, Lisa continues, you can't just suddenly change the rules without discussing it with us first. The rules? The way our family works, we depend on you, and you depend on being needed. It's worked for everyone. Has it worked for me? You've never complained before. Because I thought it was temporary. I thought eventually you'd grow up and become independent, and then we could have relationships based on something other than necessity. We are independent, David protests. Are you? You're 32 years old, and you called me to pay your rent 3 days ago. That was just until I get the job. There's always a reason, David. There's always a crisis or a delay or an emergency. At what point do you plan to actually take care of yourself? The question seems to stun him. I realize he's never actually considered it. The possibility that someday he might not have me as a safety net. This is insane, Ruth says. Families help each other. That's what families do. Help, yes. Enable, no. What's the difference? Help builds people up. Enabling keeps them dependent. The three-way conversation continues for another 20 minutes, going in circles. They want me to explain myself, to justify my decision, to stop being endlessly available. They want me to return to the familiar patterns that work so well for them. What they don't want is to examine their own behavior. After I hang up, I call Megan. How are you holding up? She asks immediately. They staged an intervention. Oh no, how was it? Exactly what you'd expect. They want me to go back to the way things were, and they can't understand why I won't. Are you wavering? The question is important. Am I wavering? Part of me misses the simplicity of always saying yes, the immediate gratification of being needed. No, I say, surprising myself with the certainty. If anything, their reaction is proving that I'm doing the right thing. How so? Not one of them has asked how they can be better family members to me. They only want to know how to get me back to being who I was for them. Over the next 2 weeks, I watch the Carter family dynamic begin to crack under the pressure of my absence. David has to ask his boss for an advance to make rent. Ruth takes her car to 3 different mechanics before finding one who'll take payments. Lisa has to hire an actual babysitter for Emma, which costs more than the theater tickets and makes her question whether the evening was worth it. None of them share these struggles with me directly, but Megan keeps me informed. She's become my eyes and ears in a family that seems determined to pretend I don't exist unless I'm useful. David's actually looking for a job more seriously now, she tells me during one of our coffee meetings. He's had 3 interviews this week. That's good news. He's also pretty angry with you. I expected that. He keeps saying you've abandoned him when he needs you most. What do you think? She considers this carefully. I think you've stopped enabling him to avoid growing up, and I think that's probably the most loving thing you could do, even if it doesn't feel like love to him right now. What about you? Are you angry with me too? For making my fiancé take responsibility for his own life? Hardly. I smile at that. Megan sees what the rest of them can't, that my boundaries aren't punishment. They're an invitation to maturity. There's something else, she says. Ruth came by yesterday. She was asking David for money for her car. Did he give it to her? He couldn't. He doesn't have it. But here's the interesting part. Instead of solving the problem for her, he told her she should call a friend or figure out a payment plan with the mechanic. He set a boundary with Ruth? He did. And when she got upset, he said, I learned it from Mom. The words hit me unexpectedly hard. David is learning. Not quickly, not easily. But he's learning that saying no doesn't make you a bad person. How is Ruth handling it? Not well. She's been calling everyone in the family, looking for someone to solve her car problem. But with you unavailable, and David broke, she's running out of options. Good. Is it? I mean, she's really struggling. She's always been struggling, Megan. The difference is that now she has to struggle toward a solution instead of struggling toward finding someone else to fix it. That evening, Emma calls me. Not Lisa calling on Emma's behalf, but Emma herself using her mother's phone. Grandma, Mommy said you can't watch me anymore. My heart clenches. This is the hardest part, the way my boundaries affect the one person in the family who isn't part of the problem. That's not exactly right, sweetheart. I just can't watch you every time your mommy wants to go out. Are you mad at us? No, baby. I'm not mad. I'm just learning to take better care of myself. Like when I have to brush my own teeth instead of having Mommy do it. The comparison is so innocent and so accurate that I have to smile. Exactly. Like that. Can I still come visit you sometimes? Just me and you? Of course you can. Anytime you want. This weekend? I check with Lisa, who agrees to drop Emma off Saturday morning. It's the first time in weeks that any of my children have asked me for something that isn't about money or problem solving. When Saturday comes, Emma and I spend the day baking cookies and working in the garden. She helps me plant bulbs for spring, her small hands careful with the delicate flowers. Grandma, why is everyone sad at our house? What do you mean, sweetheart? Mommy and Daddy keep having quiet talks that stop when I come in the room. And Uncle David looks worried all the time. And Aunt Ruth was crying on the phone yesterday. I sit back on my heels, considering how to explain adult family dynamics to a 7-year-old. Sometimes families have to learn new ways of taking care of each other, I say finally. Are you teaching them? I'm trying to. Is it hard? Very hard. She nods solemnly. Learning new things is always hard, but then it gets easier. Out of the mouths of babes. If only the adults in my family could see change as clearly as this child does. That evening, as Lisa picks Emma up, she lingers at the door. Mom, I want you to know that I've been thinking about what you said. About boundaries and healthy families. And I think maybe I don't know as much about being a good daughter as I thought I did. It's not an apology, but it's acknowledgement. And for now, that's enough. 3 weeks into my boundary experiment, Megan calls with an idea that makes my stomach clench with anxiety. I think it's time for a family meeting. A real one, where everyone has to listen, instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. I don't know if they're ready for that. They're not, but their finances are getting desperate enough that they might actually pay attention. She's right. David found a job, but it's part-time and barely covers his basic expenses. Ruth's car died completely, and she's been bumming rides to work. Lisa's babysitting costs have eaten into her discretionary spending so much that she's had to cancel her Paris trip. What exactly are you suggesting? Dinner at your house, everyone together, and you bring that ledger. The thought of exposing 24 years of financial records to my family feels terrifying and liberating in equal measure. They've never asked where the money came from, never wondered about the true cost of their dependence on me. Maybe it's time they learned. Sunday dinner. I agree. I'll make pot roast. And I'll make sure everyone comes. Sunday arrives gray and cold, matching my mood. I spend the morning cooking comfort food, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green, beans, fresh bread. The same meal I used to make when the children were small, and our family felt like a safe harbor instead of a battlefield. Lisa arrives first with Emma, who runs to hug me while her mother hangs back uncertainly. It smells like when I was little, Lisa says, and there's something wistful in her voice. David and Megan arrive together, followed by Ruth and Frank. The house fills with the cautious energy of people who aren't sure what to expect. Emma chatters happily through dinner, oblivious to the adult tension. But even she notices when I stand up and return from the kitchen carrying my old ledger. What's that, Grandma? It's a book that tells a story, I say, settling back into my chair. A story I think your family needs to hear. I open the ledger to the first page, my hands surprisingly steady. September 15th, 1999. Lisa's first semester tuition, $3,200. Lisa's fork stops halfway to her mouth. This is a record of every dollar I've spent supporting this family over the past 24 years. I continue. Every tuition payment, every emergency fund, every crisis I have solved with money instead of letting you solve it yourselves. Mom, David starts, but I hold up my hand. October 2nd, 1999. David's braces, $2,800. I continue reading, page by page, year by year. The restaurant investment that failed. The mortgage payments when promotions were delayed. The car repairs, credit card payments, Christmas gifts, vacation deposits, wedding expenses. The room grows quieter as the numbers accumulate. Ruth stops eating entirely. Frank stares at his plate. Even Emma senses the shift in atmosphere and sits still in her chair. May 12th, 2018. Lisa's wedding deposit, $5,000. I paid you back for that. Lisa says weakly. I flip to a later page. July 8th, 2018. Lisa's repayment check bounced. $60 overdraft fee, plus the original $5,000 still owed. Her face flushes red. August 3rd, 2020. David's restaurant investment, $15,000. David makes a sound like he's been punched. I didn't know you kept track like this. Someone had to. I continue through the recent entries, the monthly rent supplements, the emergency repairs, the endless small crises that became my responsibility to solve. December 15th, 2023. Ruth's Christmas shopping, because Frank was unemployed again. $800. Ruth is crying now, quiet tears that drip onto her untouched dinner. January 4th, 2024. David's credit card payment, $1,200. Stop, David whispers, please stop. But I'm not finished. I flip to the final page, the one with the total. $127,438? That's what this family has cost me over the past 24 years. The silence is complete now, broken only by Ruth's quiet sobbing and the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Greg is the first to speak, his voice barely audible. I had no idea. That's because no one ever asked, I say gently. You all assumed the money was infinite, that I could keep solving problems forever without it affecting me. Where did it come from? Lisa asks. I mean, I know Dad left you something, but... Your father left me a very good life insurance policy and a pension that I've managed carefully for 24 years. I could have traveled, upgraded the house, bought new clothes, taken classes, joined clubs. Instead, I used it to ensure that none of you ever had to struggle. We didn't ask you to do that, Ruth says through her tears. No, you didn't ask. You just accepted it. Month after month, year after year, crisis after crisis. David pushes back from the table suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is guilt manipulation. You're trying to make us feel bad for accepting help from our mother. Am I? Or am I trying to help you understand that help has a cost, even when it's given freely? You gave it freely! You offered! I did, and you took it without ever asking if I could afford it, if I minded, if there might be something I needed instead. Megan speaks for the first time since we sat down. When was the last time any of you helped Evelyn with anything? When was the last time you offered to pay for her dinner, or buy her a gift, or ask what she needed? The question hangs in the air, unanswered and accusatory. Emma, who has been listening with the intense focus children bring to adult conversations they don't fully understand, raises her small hand. I helped Grandma plant flowers. You did, sweetheart, I say, smiling at her. You're very good at helping. I can help more, she continues earnestly. I can make my own bed and carry my dishes to the kitchen and water the plants. Her innocent offer highlights the stark difference between a child's eagerness to contribute and her parents' assumption that help flows only one direction. Frank clears his throat. Evelyn, I owe you an apology. Ruth and I both do. We've been taking advantage of your generosity for years. It's not about apologies, I say. It's about understanding. This ledger doesn't represent debt. It represents a pattern where I became valuable only for what I could provide, not for who I am. That's not true, Lisa protests, but her voice lacks conviction. Isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked about my day, my feelings, my dreams? What dreams? David asks, and I can see he genuinely doesn't know. I wanted to take art classes. I wanted to learn Italian. I wanted to visit your father's grave in Ireland, where his parents are buried. I wanted to volunteer at the literacy center and maybe mentor young women starting their careers. You never said, because there was never time or money for my wants after everyone else's needs were met. Ruth looks up from her tear-stained napkin. Why are you telling us this now? Because last month on my birthday, you called me a useless old woman whose only value was solving other people's problems, and I realized you were right. I didn't mean... You did mean it, and it was true. I had made myself into exactly that, someone whose worth was measured entirely by my usefulness to others. I close the ledger and look around the table at these people I love, these people who have shaped my life for better and worse. The money is gone. I don't want it back, and I don't want apologies. What I want is for this family to learn how to take care of each other instead of just taking from each other. What does that mean? Lisa asks. It means you figure out your own childcare. David handles his own bills. Ruth solves her own transportation problems. And maybe, if we're all very lucky, we learn how to have relationships based on love instead of necessity. Emma raises her hand again. Can I still come visit you, Grandma? Even if I don't need help with anything? I reach over and squeeze her small hand. Especially then, sweetheart. Those are the best kinds of visits. The dinner ends awkwardly, with everyone processing what they've heard. But as they prepare to leave, something has shifted. The automatic expectation of my availability is gone, replaced by uncertainty, and for the first time in years, genuine consideration of what they've been taking for granted. It's not forgiveness yet, and it's not resolution, but it's a beginning. The explosion I've been expecting comes 3 days later, not from the family member I anticipated, but from all of them at once. I'm working in my garden when 3 cars pull into my driveway, simultaneously. Lisa, David, and Ruth emerge looking like a delegation with a purpose, and I know this confrontation has been planned. We need to talk, Lisa announces, striding across my lawn in her business suit and high heels, completely inappropriate for walking on grass. I set down my pruning shears and brush the dirt from my hands. Would you like to come inside? This is fine, David says, positioning himself between me and the house like he thinks I might flee. Ruth hangs back, looking uncomfortable but determined. We've been talking, Lisa begins, and we think this whole thing has gone too far. Which whole thing? This punishment you're inflicting on the family, the withholding, the guilt trips, the dramatic revelations. The words sting because there's a grain of truth in them. Part of me has enjoyed watching them scramble, seeing them finally understand what their dependence has cost me. Is that what you think this is? Punishment? What else would you call it? David demands. You've cut us all off financially, emotionally. I've set boundaries. Same thing, Ruth mutters. It's really not. I pull off my gardening gloves, buying myself time to think. But let's say you're right. Let's say this is punishment. What exactly am I punishing you for? The question seems to stump them. They exchange glances, clearly not having expected to have to articulate their crimes. For accepting your help? Lisa ventures. No. For not being grateful enough. David tries. Closer, but still no. Ruth steps forward, her voice shaking with emotion. For treating you like you said? Like someone whose only value was helping us? Yes, I say quietly. That's exactly right. But we didn't mean to, David protests. We didn't know we were doing that. Didn't you? When was the last time any of you spent time with me that didn't involve needing something? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? The silence stretches uncomfortably. That's not fair, Lisa says finally. We're busy. We have our own lives, our own responsibilities. And I don't? What responsibilities do you have? You're retired. The house is paid off. You don't have young children to worry about. I have a family to worry about. The words come out louder than I intended, surprising all of us. I have spent 24 years worrying about all of you losing sleep over your problems, sacrificing my own wants and needs to ensure that you never had to struggle. Nobody asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. That's what mothers do. We see our children in trouble and we fix it. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being children who needed occasional help and became adults who expected constant rescue. So this is our fault for accepting help from our mother? Ruth's voice is rising too now. For letting you be involved in our lives? This is your fault for reducing me to a checkbook and a problem solver. For forgetting that I'm a person with feelings and needs and dreams of my own. What dreams? David asks, and the genuine confusion in his voice breaks my heart. You never talked about having dreams. Because there was no space for them. Between your crises and Ruth's emergencies and Lisa's demands, when was I supposed to pursue anything for myself? You could have said no, Lisa points out. I tried to. Remember, 3 weeks ago I started saying no, and you staged an intervention because you thought I was having a breakdown. That shuts them up momentarily. Look, I continue, my voice calmer now. I'm not trying to hurt any of you. I'm trying to save us, all of us. Save us from what? Ruth asks. From this. I gesture between us. From relationships based entirely on need and utility. From a family where love is measured by how much you're willing to sacrifice rather than how much you're willing to grow. That's not what our family is like, David protests, but his voice lacks conviction. Isn't it? David, when was the last time you invited me somewhere? Lisa, when did you last ask my advice about something that wasn't related to childcare? Ruth, can you remember the last conversation we had that didn't involve you needing money or help? Each question lands like a small bomb, and I can see them trying to remember, trying to find evidence that contradicts what we all know is true. This is ridiculous, Lisa says, but she sounds defeated rather than angry. Families help each other. That's what we do. Help, yes. Enable, no. There's a difference. What's the difference? Ruth asks, and I can hear genuine curiosity beneath the defensiveness. Help builds people up and makes them stronger. Enabling keeps people weak and dependent. So you think we're weak? David's voice is hurt now rather than angry. I think you've never had to be strong because I wouldn't let you. The words hang in the air between us. It's the truth I've been avoiding for months. That my generosity wasn't entirely selfless. That part of me liked being needed, liked being indispensable. I enabled you, I continue, because it made me feel valuable. And you accepted the enabling because it made life easier. We were all getting something out of the arrangement. So what changed? Lisa asks quietly. I realized that what I was getting, feeling needed, wasn't worth what I was giving up. Feeling respected. Ruth starts crying again, the quiet tears of someone who's run out of fight. I'm sorry. she whispers. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. You're right about everything. Frank and I have been using you for years, and I don't even know how it started. It started because you were in trouble, and I had the resources to help. That was appropriate. It became inappropriate when it became a pattern instead of an emergency." David sits down heavily on my porch steps, looking younger than his 32 years. "I don't know how to pay my own bills," he admits. "I mean, I know intellectually, but I've never had to do it without knowing you were there as backup. It's terrifying." "Good," I say, sitting down beside him. "Terror is motivating. Is this really how it's going to be now? You're just done helping us?" "I'm done enabling you, but I'm not done loving you or being your family." "What's the difference?" I think about Megan's earlier question about what healthy help looks like. The difference is that from now on, my help comes with expectations. If you want me to babysit Emma, you ask in advance and respect it if I say no. If you need financial help, you come with a plan for paying it back and a commitment to not needing the same help again. If you want advice, you have to be willing to take it. Lisa sits down on the other side of me. "And if we want a relationship with you that's not based on need, then you call me just to talk. You invite me places. You ask about my life and listen to the answers. You treat me like a person instead of a service." "Can you forgive us?" Ruth asks from where she's standing, looking small and defeated. I consider the question seriously. Can I forgive them for taking advantage of my generosity, for reducing me to my usefulness, for making me feel invisible in my own family? I already have. I realize. That's not the issue. The issue is whether we can build something better going forward. "How do we do that?" David asks. "We start by being honest about what we want from each other, and we learn to say no when someone asks for something we can't or shouldn't give." "Even you?" Lisa asks. "You'll say no to us?" Especially me. I've been the worst at boundaries of anyone in this family. Emma appears from behind the cars, where she's apparently been playing while the adults argued. She runs straight to me and climbs onto my lap. "Are you done being mad at each other?" she asks. "We weren't mad, sweetheart. We were figuring things out." "Good. Can we have cookies now?" I look around at my family. These complicated, flawed, beloved people who have shaped my life in ways both beautiful and painful. "Yes," I say, standing up with Emma in my arms. "We can have cookies now. It's not a complete resolution. There will be more difficult conversations, more boundary testing, more learning how to be family members instead of just relatives. But it's a start, and for the first time in years, it feels like enough. 6 weeks after our confrontation in the garden, I'm learning what it means to live in the space between forgiveness and trust. The family is trying, awkwardly, sometimes resentfully, but genuinely, trying to build new patterns. David calls on a Tuesday evening, and my first instinct is to brace for whatever crisis he needs me to solve. Instead, he says, "I got the full-time position at the marketing firm. I wanted you to know." "That's wonderful, honey. How do you feel about it?" "Terrified," he admits with a laugh. "But good terrified, like I'm finally doing something I should have done years ago." "What changed?" "I had to change. When you stopped catching me every time I fell, I had to learn to land on my feet. It's the first time he's acknowledged the connection between my boundaries and his growth, and I feel something tight in my chest finally loosen." "I'm proud of you." "Thanks. Hey, Mom. Megan and I want to take you out to dinner this weekend. No agenda, no favors to ask. Just because we'd like to spend time with you." The offer catches me off guard. When was the last time someone in my family wanted my company without needing something in return? I'd like that, I say, and mean it. Good. I'll call you tomorrow, with details. He pauses. And Mom, I've been going to those financial literacy classes at the community center, learning how to budget properly, how to save. It's embarrassing that I'm 32 and just figuring this out, but I'm trying. After he hangs up, I sit in my kitchen with a cup of tea, marveling at the strangeness of it all. 6 weeks ago, David calling me meant crisis. Tonight it meant connection. Lisa has been the slowest to adjust. She still bristles at my boundaries, still seems to think this is all an elaborate punishment I'll eventually abandon, but even she has made small changes. Last week, she picked up Emma from school herself, instead of calling me at the last minute. When I complimented her on handling a work situation she'd told me about, she actually thanked me instead of dismissing my input. Ruth has surprised me the most. 3 weeks after our garden confrontation, she showed up at my door with a pot of soup and an apology that went deeper than the surface platitudes I'd been hearing. I've been thinking about what you said, she'd told me, settling into my kitchen chair like she used to when we were girls. About the difference between help and enabling. I realized I've been enabling Frank too, making excuses for his drinking, covering for him when he doesn't show up for family events. And I've been so focused on my own problems that I forgot you might have some too. We all have problems, Ruthie. Yes, but some of us have been carrying everyone else's along with our own. She'd reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I want to do better. Not just with boundaries and asking for help appropriately, but with seeing you, really seeing you. That conversation had led to others. Ruth now calls me twice a week, not to ask for anything, but to check in. She tells me about her job at the library, her worries about her youngest starting high school, her attempts to convince Frank to try AA again, and she asks about my life, my garden, my book club, the watercolor classes I've been thinking about taking. You should take them, she'd said last week. You always loved art when we were kids. Remember those sketches you used to do of the creek behind Mama's house? I'd forgotten that anyone remembered those sketches. The fact that Ruth did and brought them up unprompted felt like a small miracle. The hardest part of these past 6 weeks hasn't been maintaining my boundaries. It's been sitting with my own guilt about the years I spent enabling all of them. In my quieter moments, I have to face the uncomfortable truth that my generosity wasn't always pure. Part of it was love, yes, but part of it was also fear. Fear that if I wasn't useful, I wouldn't be wanted. Megan, who has become an unexpected friend through all of this, helped me see this during one of our coffee dates. You know, she'd said, stirring her latte thoughtfully, I think what you're going through isn't that different from what David is experiencing. You both have to learn who you are when you're not playing the same old roles. What do you mean? David is learning who he is when he's not the family screw-up who needs rescuing. You're learning who you are when you're not the family rescuer who needs to be needed. Her words had stung because they were true. I'd built my identity around being indispensable, just as David had built his around being helpless. We were both trapped in patterns that served no one. But slowly, we're all learning new patterns. Emma still lights up when she sees me, but now it's because she genuinely enjoys my company, not because I'm the grandmother who never says no. When she visits now, we do things together. Bake cookies, work in the garden, read stories. I'm not performing grandmotherhood. I'm simply being a grandmother. Greg, Lisa's husband, has turned out to be an ally I never expected. Last month, He pulled me aside after a family barbecue. "I owe you an apology," he'd said quietly. "I've watched Lisa take you for granted for years, and I never said anything. I told myself it wasn't my place, but that was cowardly. You've been good to our family, and you deserved better." "Thank you for saying that. I've been talking to Lisa about it. She's struggling with the idea that she might not be as independent as she thought she was. She's proud, you know. It's hard for her to admit she needed as much help as she did." "Pride can be a prison," I told him. "Yeah, but she's working on it. We both are. The changes aren't dramatic. We're not a completely different family. But the small shifts feel monumental to me. When we gather now, the conversations include me instead of flowing around me. When someone needs something, they ask directly, instead of hinting. When I say no, it's accepted instead of argued with. Most importantly, I'm rediscovering parts of myself that got buried under decades of caretaking. I signed up for those watercolor classes Ruth mentioned. I joined a hiking group for seniors. I'm reading books I choose, instead of just the ones my book club assigns. Last weekend, I spent Saturday morning painting in my garden, something I haven't done in 20 years. Emma found me there when she came to visit, and instead of interrupting, she sat quietly beside me and watched. "That's really pretty, Grandma," she'd said when I finished. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Are you happier now?" The question had caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "Mom and Dad and Aunt Ruth were talking. They said you're different now. Happier." I'd considered her question seriously. Was I happier? Or was I just less burdened? "I think I'm more myself now," I'd finally answered. "Good," she'd said, leaning against my shoulder. "I like yourself. Children see things so clearly. Sometimes, as I finish my tea and prepare for bed, I think about the family dinner we have planned for next Sunday. For the first time in years, I'm looking forward to it instead of dreading it. Not because I expect perfection. We're still learning, still making mistakes, still working through years of ingrained patterns. But now we're working through them together, as equals, as people who choose to be in each other's lives, rather than people who simply take each other for granted. It's not the ending I expected when this all began. It's better. It's real. And for the first time in decades, it's enough. As autumn settles into winter, the changes in our family dynamic become more pronounced. The initial awkwardness of our new boundaries has given way to something more comfortable, though not without its challenges. David's progress continues to surprise me. Not only did he get the full-time job, but he's thriving in it. More importantly, he's learning to navigate problems without immediately calling for rescue. "I had a flat tire yesterday," he tells me, during one of our new weekly phone calls. Conversations that happen because we enjoy talking, not because crisis demands it. And you know what my first instinct was? To call you to come fix it. "But you didn't." "No, I called AA like a normal adult." He laughs at himself. It felt weird handling it on my own, but also good. Like I was finally acting my age. These small victories matter more than the big ones. David learning to change a tire, Lisa scheduling her own childcare, Ruth solving her own problems before they become emergencies. Each represents a step toward the adults I always hoped they could become. But perhaps the most significant change is in how we relate to each other during the good times, not just the crises. Last month, Lisa called me on a Thursday evening, and my stomach still clenched, expecting disaster. "I just got promoted to senior partner," she announced. "Lisa, that's wonderful. Congratulations." "Thanks. I wanted you to be the first to know. Well, after Greg and Emma. I'm so proud of you. I know you are. You always have been, even when I didn't deserve it." Her voice softened. "I've been thinking about what you said during our confrontation, about how we never spent time together unless someone needed something. I'd like to change that." "I'd like that too." "Good, because I was hoping you'd come with me to look at art galleries this weekend. I know you're taking those watercolor classes, and I thought, maybe we could make it a thing, a monthly art day." The invitation felt like a gift, not because Lisa was offering to spend time with me, though that mattered, but because she was acknowledging my interests, my growth, my identity beyond being her mother. We've had 3 art days since then. They're not perfect. Lisa still has a tendency to dominate conversations and make everything about her work. But she's trying, asking about my painting, listening to my opinions about the pieces we view together. During our last gallery visit, she stopped in front of a landscape that reminded me of the creek Ruth had mentioned, the one I used to sketch as a child. "You should paint something like this," she said. "But better, with your own style." It was a small comment, but it acknowledged something I'd been afraid no one in my family would ever see, that I might have talents and dreams worth pursuing. Ruth and I have developed our own ritual. Tuesday mornings we meet for coffee at the diner downtown, the same one where we used to go with our mother 40 years ago. We talk about everything and nothing. Books we're reading, memories of our childhood, worries about our children, dreams we're finally allowing ourselves to have. "I'm thinking about going back to school," she told me last Tuesday. "Library science, degree. I know I'm 58, but nothing. If it's what you want, you should do it." Frank thinks I'm crazy. Frank thinks a lot of things. Not all of them are worth listening to. She laughed. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just started listening." It's true, though painful to acknowledge. I've been offering wisdom and perspective for years, but it was easier for my family to see me as a problem solver than as a person with insights worth considering. The relationship that has changed the most dramatically is the one with Emma. Without the dynamic of me always saying yes to everything, our time together has become more intentional and, surprisingly, more enjoyable. She still comes over after school sometimes, but now we plan activities together. Last week, we started a garden journal, documenting the changes in my yard through the seasons. She draws pictures while I write descriptions of what we observe. "Grandma," she said yesterday, looking up from a sketch of the bare rose bushes, "Mom says you're teaching all of us how to be better people." "What do you think about that?" "I think you're just being yourself, and that makes us want to be better." Out of the mouths of babes, the hardest moments come when old patterns try to reassert themselves. Last month, David lost his job, not through any fault of his own, but because the marketing firm downsized. My first instinct was to offer money, to fix the problem, to make everything okay. Instead, I took a deep breath and asked, "What's your plan?" I've already updated my resume and started applying for new positions. I have enough savings to cover next month's rent, and Megan said she can pick up extra shifts if needed. That sounds like a solid plan. How can I support you through this? Maybe. Could you help me practice for interviews? I know you're good at that kind of thing. It was help, not enabling. Support, not rescue. The distinction matters more than I ever realized. The job search took 3 weeks. 3 weeks, during which I bit my tongue dozens of times, resisting the urge to solve his problem for him. But David handled it himself, landing a position that's actually better than the one he lost. I don't think I could have done this a year ago, he admitted when he called to tell me about the new job. Not without panicking and asking you to fix everything. What changed? I learned that I could handle things on my own. But also, I learned that asking for the right kind of help isn't the same as being helpless. These conversations remind me that the changes we've made aren't just about boundaries. They're about respect, mutual respect. I respect their ability to handle their own lives, and they've learned to respect my needs and limitations. It's not perfect. Lisa still occasionally makes comments that sting. Ruth sometimes slips back into old patterns of neediness. David occasionally makes financial decisions that make me nervous. But they're their decisions to make. And when they succeed, which they're doing more often now, the success is truly theirs. As for me, I'm rediscovering who I am when I'm not, defined entirely by what I do for others. The watercolor classes have led to a small studio space in my spare bedroom. The hiking group has introduced me to friends who knew nothing of my family drama, who like me simply for who I am. Last week, I sold my first painting, a small landscape, to a woman in my hiking group who admired it when she came for coffee. "You're an artist," Emma said when I told her about the sale. "I suppose I am." "You're lots of things, Grandma. Artist, gardener, wise person, good cook." "Thank you, sweetheart." "You're welcome. But I think the most important thing, you are as happy." She's right, I am happy. Not the desperate, people-pleasing happiness I used to chase, but something deeper and more sustainable. I'm happy because I'm living authentically for the first time in decades. I'm happy because my family relationships are based on choice rather than obligation. I'm happy because I've learned the difference between being needed and being valued. Most of all, I'm happy because I've reclaimed something I thought was lost forever: my sense of self-worth. The road here wasn't easy. There were tears, arguments, moments when I wondered if I was destroying my family rather than saving it. But sometimes destruction is necessary before rebuilding can begin. We're not the same family we were a year ago. We're something new, something healthier, something real. And that, I think, is worth celebrating.